Earlier this week, I spoke with former Senator Joe Lieberman about Joe Biden's assault allegations and the Trump administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Here is part two of that conversation. What's your reaction to what Mike Pompeo said? There's enormous evidence that the virus outbreak occurred in a Chinese laboratory.
Well, I'm interested in it. Secretary Pompeo obviously has access to classified information that you and I and most others don't have access to. I think it's important to say that nobody is saying that this was an intentional bioterrorist attack by China or anyone else. The question is, did this start with an accident in a laboratory which was experimenting with viruses in Wuhan? And there is, as you know, such a laboratory. Or as most of the scientists and virologists, the virus experts, say, did it start with bats carrying the virus, attacking live animals in the wet market in Wuhan, who then infected people? This is one that's beyond our knowledge, although it obviously can badly affect U.S.-China relationships. And I think we've got to be careful about our accusations unless we know for sure that there's a basis for them. I will tell you this, Larry. When we started our commission, and Tom Ridge and I didn't start it, we were asked to be the heads of it. It was run out of the Hudson Institute think tank in Washington. Our charge was to examine three different kinds of threats. One from infectious disease outbreaks, the other from an actual bioterrorist attack by an enemy, and the third was an accidental release of a biological pathogen from a laboratory in the United States. And we've had those happen. So it's certainly conceivable that this happened in China, even in as slight a way, you would think, as one person working in the lab getting infected by a particular virus they were experimenting with, not knowing it, going out, spreading the virus, and then it just went like wildfire. So it's too early to say, really. I just hope we don't get into a shouting match with China. That's not going to be good for either country or anybody in either country.
How big a portion of the election will be devoted to the COVID-19?
I think a lot will. It's a really important question. I think that right now, if the election were held today, and I'm basing this on public opinion polling nationally and in some of the critical states, Vice President Biden would beat President Trump. But the election is 6 months away. And if the virus is diminishing and people are going back to work and the economy is growing, then I think it's really a jump ball. I mean, I wouldn't predict it'll be very close, probably again. A lot of it will depend on how each of them campaigns. And in the case of Vice President Biden, who he chooses as a vice presidential candidate, which I think will be a very important decision.
Was Trump's statement that we had the greatest economy in the history of the world correct?
I don't know what the basis for a statement like that is. I mean, it was a great economy. We were growing, the markets were high. Look, it is fascinating and encouraging that although the markets go up and down, that they've basically been going up while a lot of the economic data has been really bad. But still, there are areas of strength in our economy. And as I say, there's a lot of money out there just waiting to be used productively. So I think the market is saying to us now, or not today, but over the last month or two, that the investors believe that the U.S. economy is going to come back, and that's encouraging. And I hope it continues.
You served with him in the Senate. You're both Democrats. Give me your thoughts on Joe Biden's current situation?
Yeah, well, I'll say personally, I mean, I served 24 years with him in the Senate, just a strange personal twist of fate. I was a state senator in the 1970s. 1972, Joe Biden gets elected to the U.S. Senate from Delaware. He's not even 30 when he gets elected. He's 30, constitutional minimum age when he takes office in January. 2 years later, I'm running for re-election. I have a friend in New Haven. I'll mention his name, Roger Harrison. Roger calls me and says, "How'd you like to have a U.S. Senator come up and campaign for you?" I said, "I can't imagine who would want to do that for a lowly state senator." Well, I went to Syracuse with a guy named Joe Biden, and he came up, and he was great. We spent a day together. We've been friends ever since. He's just a fine human being. Um, he knew how to make the Senate work. I mean, he by the virtue of his personality, the fact that people liked him and trusted him, he had some unusually strong relationships with Republican senators, even people like Strom Thurmond, but certainly people like Orrin Hatch and a lot of others, with whom he collaborated to get some big laws passed. So I have a lot of respect for him.
Do you worry that the Me Too movement will now attach itself to him?
Yeah, I do worry about it. I mean, this woman, Tara Reid, has made a serious accusation. I mean, I will say myself, from all these decades I've known Joe, in particular the 24 years in the Senate, I never saw any behavior like the behavior that or even suggestive of the behavior that this lady accuses him of. But she's come out, and it's not easy, and made the accusation. And as Biden himself said, she deserves to be taken seriously in the investigation and the accusation investigated. One of the most significant things in these cases is that is there a pattern of behavior? I mean, are there others who will say that Joe Biden did something similar to them? So far, we haven't seen it. So my guess is, because of the way politics is, that this will chase him and hound him, this case, right through election day. But I don't really think it's going to decide how many people vote unless something more is proven about this kind of behavior by Joe Biden. Right now, it's just an accusation.
Democratic Chairman Tom Perez says he still expects the party to hold an in-person convention in Milwaukee. You think that is going to happen?
Well, it would be great if it does. I mean, I guess the Republicans still say they're going to hold one. I guess theirs is in Charlotte, North Carolina. But it's day by day, honestly. And you put that many people in one place, unless we found a diagnostic treatment medicine, or by then the numbers are way down. I think it's best to be cautious. Larry, there are some people who would say that the conventions have sort of run out their effective lifespan.
No.
Yeah, and we ought to find a different way to nominate, and maybe it doesn't have to be a crowd like that. It's an old American institution, but I think that maybe a lot of people are growing tired of it, except the delegates who have a good time.
Do you think Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are the key states?
Yeah, they sure look like it. You might throw in Arizona, maybe Pennsylvania, but that's it. I agree. I mean, this is the strange thing we have now. You were kind enough to refer to the 2000 election. So Al Gore and I got 540,000 more votes than George Bush and Dick Cheney, but we lost the Electoral College by 3 votes. Hillary Clinton got almost 3 million more votes than Donald Trump in 2016. I forgot the numbers, but he won the Electoral College by 30 or 40 votes. So that's the way it is. That's the Constitution, and there are big population states, New York, California, which are pretty predictably Democratic. So that's a good head start on the numbers. But those states you cite are the ones that are going to be the battleground states. And when I said before that if the election were held today, I think Joe Biden would win, it's based on reading polls in those states, because in every one of those states today, Joe Biden is ahead. Some are quite close, like Florida. Some, like Michigan, he's built something like a 10-point lead.
No.
Well, I don't know if that'll hold, but if it does, Biden is our next president.
Finally, Joe, give us your outlook. What's the new normal going to look like?
I don't know if I see it. I mean, I hope we return as much to the old normal as we can, because it was pretty good life here in America. But for some period of time, we're going to have to figure out how to, things like the handshake are going to go. We may be wearing masks. We've got to socially distance a bit. We're probably going to be doing interviews and meetings more online than we have before. But you too, Larry, I miss people. I want to say hello to somebody. I want to be in a room with somebody. I want to go out and have a drink or have dinner together. And I think I'm not, and you're not abnormal in that. So I think in a lot of ways, as soon as we don't have a reason to be fearful about our health, then we're going to go back as close to normal as we can.
That may not happen so quickly. If someone tells me, well, Larry, it's okay to go to the Palm tonight, I'm not sure I want to go.
I know, that's what's happening. It's like that's what's happening in China, because they claim they've stopped the virus and they've opened up a lot of things, but people are coming out very slowly for exactly the same reason. So it'll happen here too.